Hi guys, I'm back, and today we're going to do a how to do an acrylic pour video. Unfortunately, I don't have any FLOETROL. I ran out of FLOETROL. The last bit of my FLOETROL, the paintings that I was doing, they were turning out kind of sandy. You can see that in the last video. I'm pretty sure it's because my FLOETROL has gone bad. I've had it for a long while, and it doesn't last forever. Just like your paints can go bad, your FLOETROL can go bad. So, if it's been sitting there for 6 months, you probably don't want to use it. Yeah. I don't know if it breaks down more in the heat. Maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know. But I did a pour with that. After this last video, I did another pour with some fresh paints. I went and bought some fresh paints and came out with the same problem. So I'm pretty sure it was the FLOETROL. So what I did was I did a test with the glue this morning. And I used the same amount of glue that I would use FLOETROL. So when you go buy a new container of FLOETROL, just use your best judgment. Use about the same amount of FLOETROL as I am using for glue. There's a lot of people out there that use the glue instead of FLOETROL because it's non-toxic. FLOETROL is not really good for you, so if you're going to use the FLOETROL and the silicone, please wear gloves. And we're using some super cheap paint today. I want to show you guys you can use super cheap paint and still get a really pretty pour out of it. Yeah, this is Apple Barrel, Purple Iris, Parakeet, and Cameo Pink. And we're missing a color. Well, let's see. It is Laguna. So you can use really super cheap paint and come out with a really pretty pour painting. You don't have to go buy that really expensive stuff. This works. The only thing about the Apple Barrel paint is that it dries a little duller than it looks when it is wet. The colors kind of darken a little bit, but when you do your clear coat afterwards, it'll bring back the pretty to it. So don't be dismayed if it dries kind of dull and lifeless. Just take your clear coat, whatever clear coat you want to use, and it'll bring it back to life, I promise. Okay, so we've got our paints mixed up here. Again, the only thing I ever use is paint, FLOETROL, and in this case today we're going to use the glue all, and a little bit of chilled distilled water. I use the chilled distilled water. One, I chill it because the paints don't like being warm, and two, I use the distilled water because distilled water doesn't have all those minerals in it that can sort of hinder your cell creation. So, if your sink water is not working for you, you've tried changing everything else, try putting some distilled water in the refrigerator and use that, especially during the summertime. In the wintertime, my house is freezing cold, so the water's pretty much chilled and the paints are a nice cool temperature anyway. But during the summertime, my paints are not happy. It's 95 degrees here in Georgia and the humidity is 100%, so it is even hard to breathe at this time. So we're going to get those paint containers out of the way. And like I said, always keep a palette knife. I'll show you what I use that for in a little while. And then of course you need your popsicle sticks to mix up your paint. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I mix up my paint. Now I've got about 2 ounces of paint here. I'm probably going to put about, I'd say, 1/2 to 3/4 of an ounce of glue in there. And we're going to mix that up. Always mix up your glue into your paint or your FLOETROL into your paint before you add the water, because you don't know, what the consistency is going to be. Your paint, as it sits here, it can get thicker. So keep some chilled distilled water. So when you're all ready to do your painting, check the consistency of your paints first and make sure that they're the right consistency. Right now, you can see the lines that get made in the paint, and they're pretty thick. So we're just going to add a little bit of water, just a little bit, probably 1/8 of a teaspoon, maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon. Mix that up really well. Always add tiny amounts of water at a time. You might have to do it 6 times, but I guarantee it's better than adding too much water all in one lump sum and your paint being way too thin, because there's really nothing you can do about that except add more paint to it. Okay, and I don't know if you can see this, but I like to drizzle mine. I like to think of it as a cold honey. A lot of people say warm honey, but I have discovered that warm honey is a bit too thin for my paintings. So when you're drawing in your paint, you're drizzling it down. If the mark stays for about 3 seconds and then disappears, that's about the right consistency. So I think that's good. And I want to move my water out of the way. And of course, you're going to want to have a torch. And I have discovered with the glue, the silicone comes up slower with the glue as opposed to the FLOETROL. So when you're torching your painting, and say 10 minutes later you see air bubbles and you go torch it again, it's going to bring up more cells. With the FLOETROL, it doesn't usually do that. After about 10 or 15 minutes, you're done with cell activity, and you can safely torch it gently and get more air bubbles out. With the glue, not quite so much. It tends to bring up more cells, and it's usually those teeny tiny cells that you really, I don't like the teeny tiny cells. So bear that in mind if you're going to use the glue. So I've got a pour cup here. Usually I would use, medicine cup, but with the glue is going to move slower, and it's a little thicker and stickier, so it's not going to flow across the canvas as easily. So I'm going to use probably a little more paint than I typically would for this size canvas. This is an 8x8 canvas. What I have done on the back side, as you can see, I've got push pins in there, but what I first do is I staple down the corners here. You can see those, like that diagonal staple right there, that's mine. I will peel up this corner of the canvas and fold it under and then staple it down and hammer that staple in. That way we have a nice neat edge, because they're kind of glued down from the gesso from the factory, but then once they get paint on them, this little edge will kind of come up like this because of the wet paint. So it's just a little trick that I like to do to keep the backs of my canvases, at least flat. They're not going to be neat because I don't tape them off. Some people tape off the back of their painting so it looks nice and neat, but I have found that it's a waste of time. Just because, I don't know, I kind of like the messy back to it. I try not to get paint on this part. If you don't get paint all over this part being messy doesn't seem to matter. But when you get paint all over the back of your canvas, it looks kind of junky. So just, be aware of that. Be careful. All right, and here is my silicone, 100% silicone. It's treadmill belt lubricant. It's from Lifespan. I bought this at the sports store over near the treadmills, but you can order this online. It's about $15, which seems like a lot of money, but as you can see, I've been using this bottle for about a year and a half, 2 years now probably, and I still have most of the bottle left. So it's a really good investment. This silicone tends to work really well for me, and you can see how it's very liquidy. It's like the consistency of water. If you pick up a bottle of silicone and it's thick and jelly, or very slow to run, don't buy it. It may say 100% silicone on the outside, but it's got something else in it that's going to make it thicker, and a lot of those silicones will cause massive divots where the silicone rises to the surface in your painting, and when it dries, it's really ugly. So try and, like I said, buy the silicone. It works the best for me. And I'm going to take my little straw here, and it's just going to have one little teeny tiny drop off the end of that straw, and that's it. That's all the silicone I put in my paints, in each one. And yes, I put the silicone in each and every paint, including white when I use white. I'm not using white today. But you see all those air bubbles? Those usually pop a lot easier when you're using FLOETROL. I'll just give it a good stir, not too much. There's my cup. And yeah, let's proceed. So we're going to start off with purple first. And you can see it's pretty thick. Probably gets a little thicker as it sits. Most of my paints do get a little thicker when they sit for a while. So if you're letting them sit overnight, make sure you re-stir them before you. Let's put some pink in there first. Make sure you re-stir them before you put your silicone in. Do not put your silicone in until you are just ready to pour, because you don't want to you know, mix it in the day before and then have to go back and stir your paints a little more and realize they're too thick. So then you got to add water to them, and then your silicone gets even more mixed in, which all that does is cause smaller cells. I also have found that with the glue, I'm going to end up with smaller cells. They don't stretch quite as far as the FLOETROL does, but that's okay. We still should be able to get some pretty good sized cells. I'm just kind of, you know, I'm not going in any order, but you do want to, one, be careful when you're pouring your paints together. You don't want to pour them from way up high, because then they just mix together. And two, you want to layer lots of layers. The more layers you have, the prettier your cells are going to turn out. The more sort of 3D they're going to turn out. Okay, we're getting down towards the end here. And again, I'm sorry if my hand is in your way. I've had a couple of people comment, you know, if I'd move my hand out of my way or move the cup out of the way so they can see what I'm doing. I'm just pouring paint in the cup. There's not a lot to it. I'm probably pouring in about, a tablespoon at a time, and just layering them on top of each other gently. So, and guys, please, just really seriously, you know, if you just started this, don't give up. Don't get frustrated. Don't get disappointed. Not all of my paintings come out even today, and I've been doing this for a couple of years now, several years now. Your paintings aren't all going to come out. They're just not. Even when you've perfected your formula, you're still going to have problems. You're still going to have days where nothing works. I always like to say, you know, you really have to fail to succeed at this little game here we're doing, because that's the only way you're going to learn, is by failing. So, you know, failures are our successes. Okay, and the longer you let it sit, the more your paints are going to kind of mix as they flow down back through each other, especially like if you've got heavier paints on the bottom, they're just going to sink down through. So if you've got a lot of white on the bottom, the white's going to sink. So don't let it sit there too long. It's not necessary. And just let that sit and drain out of your cup along the edges there. This is where your palette knife's going to come in real handy. Just scrape all that kind of mess out and run it down along your sides of your canvas, the corners there. Get it all out of there. You don't want to waste any of that paint until it is not any longer useful. Scrape it all out. Make sure you cover your corners, because the paint does not like to go over those corners. It just does not. And that one you can kind of push over the corners there. But don't leave any paint in your cup. Use it all. Don't be afraid to scrape it off the table there. And you know, I use the plastic, I guess it's like a window covering, you know, that you can get from Home Depot to cover your windows in the wintertime. That's what I use to lay on my table, and then I tape it down at the corners. So my table is protected. But as you can see, I didn't always use the plastic. You can see under my plastic I got paint there. I used to use newspaper in the very beginning. But then I realized, okay, if you watch, you can kind of see the cells coming up. That's a lot of the air bubbles popping. Let's see how pretty. See, so this works with glue too. You just have other problems with the glue. You know, like I said, you've got to, but look at that, look how pretty those are. Okay, so we're going to leave that. They're going to grow a little bit. They don't grow as much with the glue as they do with the FLOETROL. So keep that in mind as well. I don't even remember what I was saying before. But, yeah. Okay. One thing I forgot to mention. You need a corner catcher. You got to have a corner catcher. So I've got a corner catcher. It's just a piece of cardboard. Lucky Charms, yeah. Yes, I'm still a kid. I do like my Lucky Charms. You should take a piece of cardboard, take your cereal boxes, cut them up into strips, about, 3 or 4 inches wide is all you need, and fold it in half, and that's perfect. I don't see a lot of people using corner catchers anymore, but I love my corner catchers. So they are a tremendous help. So I'm going to set my corner catcher. Now, look how pretty this is right here. This is like probably my favorite spot right here. So I want to save this corner. But we got some pretty stuff going on all over the place. So let's go ahead and tilt this. And keep your fingers along the side, but kind of bring your corner catcher back where your corner here is exposed. So the paint can flow down over this corner but be blocked on the sides. And one thing I didn't do, which I do like to do, if you take your paint, just take the edges and kind of push it. That way it'll help it flow a little better. Because you're going to lose all of these edges anyway. And you really want it to flow over the side of that canvas. You want to give it the best chance to shine that it can possibly have. So just sort of push it over gently. Make sure your sides are wet, because you're going to lose all that anyway, so don't worry about it. Sorry, my arm is blocking the light there. Okay, so that's a little better. But as you can see, we've got some really pretty cells going on. But these are really beautiful down here, so we're going to try and save these. Again, hold the sides, but let the corner be open. And tilt slowly. Man, in the beginning I had so much trouble tilting slowly because I had no patience for this. But you lose a lot of pretty when you tilt too fast. If you tilt slowly, the paint won't roll over itself as much as it will if you tilt fast. So I'm going slow. I really want to save some of those cells. They're so pretty. We've got some pretty stuff going on everywhere. And as you can see, you see a lot of little lines around the cells. That's what you get when you layer your paint a bunch of times. If you just, put your 4 colors in, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it, then you're not going to get all those pretty lines around your cells. We're almost down to the corner. It's coming slowly. And if you talk to it, come on, baby, it'll go a little faster. Take your corner catcher and sort of grab it out and down. And it'll pull some of that side stuff down without messing up your edges. Okay, look what we got going on there. Really pretty. And I like to go from corner to corner. Although this is prettier right here, but I find that if I go from corner to corner and then corner to corner, my cells look a little better. They don't get quite as wonky. So remember, pour off the side first. That's your favorite part. Because when you pour your last corner that you pour off of, you're going to lose the most amount of paint. Because you got to get rid of some of that paint. If you leave it too thick, you're going to have lots of cracking. So you're going to have this beautiful painting, you're going to come back the next day and it's going to be cracked. Also, if you're painting in a room with a ceiling fan on, turn your ceiling fan off. There have been many a time I have left my ceiling fan on because it is so hot, and I've come back the next day and I've had cracks in my paint because my ceiling fan has just dried the top of the paint and the underneath is drying a lot slower, and it causes cracks. Okay, so I think I like this area better than this one. This one's got too much green, so I'm going to pour off this way now. Make sure you kind of get all your paint back towards the center first before you go back and pour off another corner. That way you'll have more movement and less, less cells going wonky. I don't know, I may quit using FLOETROL and go back and start using glue, because this is actually a pretty little painting. We'll have to see how it dries. I'll show you guys, next week maybe, or the week after that, depending on how long this takes to dry. It may take a little longer to dry because it's got the glue in it. The FLOETROL paintings tend to dry a little faster. But I'll show you guys how it dried. Because I mixed my paint today and immediately poured with it, they may end up with some pinholes. So we'll see. We'll just have to see. Okay. Now you don't want to grab the edges up here like you were doing, like I've got my thumb in here. So that's another good thing with the push pins. Now with this, I don't tend to use the corner catcher on the last corner because you got a lot of paint you need to get off. So go slowly so you don't stretch your cells too badly. I'm going to get all that green come off, hopefully. And the more you slowly stretch your cells, the bigger they'll get. Okay, but we do want to keep a little bit of that green because you need it for balance. We'll bring some of those cells back to the center. That'll also, you know, those cells that we stretched in that other corner will kind of, you know, go back. There we go. And you want your painting to feel balanced, so don't worry about if you feel like you need to tilt it a little bit one way or the other, but just don't tilt it too much at this point because you'll stretch out some cells like these. If I went that way with it, these would be so long and they just wouldn't be pretty. So now what's going to happen, because I've used the glue, there's a lot of air bubbles in it because I didn't leave it overnight. And you can see some little spots right here. Those are where the air bubbles are popping. When I take the torch over this, it's really going to bring up some little stuff, unfortunately. Because I really like it like this. I don't want to have to do this, but I got a lot of air bubbles. So just really quick. Okay. That popped a good amount of air bubbles. So there we go. There's your little painting. If you don't want to use FLOETROL, use Elmer's Glue All. I tell you, it's about the same price to get a gallon of this as it is to get a gallon of FLOETROL. So, like I said, I may be switching because the Glue All is a safer product. See, it says safe and non-toxic. That's what it says. So, all right, let's see. I hope you guys were in focus. All right, so we're getting it down so you can see all the pretty cells close up. And you can see the little spots. That's from the air bubbles, unfortunately, because I mixed and painted in the same day. That's hard to avoid, but I don't mind them. Look how pretty. You see all the lines around the cells? You're not going to get that if you don't layer your paint. So please layer paint. Sorry for the shadow. Let's see if we can back up a little bit. But there we go. There's some really pretty striped cells right there. Some pretty down there. And let's take you around the edge so you can kind of see the edge. See how all the cells have sort of gone over the edge? And if you torch your edge, you'll get more cells out of it. So try torching your edge too. I don't usually do that because I kind of like how it looks on the edge. Okay guys, so there's your pretty for today. Debbie, I hope this helps. And all of you who are new to the channel and new to acrylic pouring, I hope this is going to help you a lot. One tip I like to share with you guys is go on the side of more transparent / translucent colors as opposed to opaque. The opaque is what you see here around the cells. And they have a softer look to them, and then the lines around it are generally the transparent translucent paints. So I usually try and only put like 1 or 2 opaques with 2, 3, 4 transparent translucent paints. I just like the look better, but you still need an opaque to give you that sort of soft around the cells look to it. So yeah, that's a tip I can share with you guys. And yeah, I'll show you this painting when it's dry. Like I said, it's probably going to have some pinholes in it just because I used the glue and I didn't let the paint sit overnight and let all the air bubbles disperse. But that's okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you learned a little bit of something, and I hope you guys have some successful pours out there. Feel free to share them with me. You can send me, you know, pictures of them in my email. I'd love to see them and hear how you guys are doing out there. And yeah, thank you for joining my channel. Thank you for all of those who have supported my channel for so long. And I'm so happy to have some new subscribers on board. And if you guys will, if you watch the ads for me, I know they can be a little tedious sometimes, but that's the only way my channel can continue, because yeah, all these paints and stuff, you know, it's a real investment, you guys. So thank you so much for, you know, if you've donated through my PayPal account to my channel, I assure you every penny of that goes back into paying for these paints. So thank you so much for supporting me in whatever way you do. And I hope wherever you are on the planet, you're happy and healthy and you're taking care of each other and you're wearing your masks wherever you go and you're washing your hands a lot and using your hand sanitizer a lot. You know, the moment you get back in that vehicle, put that hand sanitizer on your hands and keep everyone at home safe and happy and healthy. All right, guys. See you later. Bye.